Hello and welcome everyone, this is Calebovitsch coming to you with another episode of Deck Check. In today's episode I will be revisiting a rather old archetype with a lot of rather new cards in the new format that is Expedition. And let's get to it. The old archetype I was telling you about in the intro is Praxis Ramp. Now this deck is not running any permanent plus X max power effects like Initiative of the Sands or the leveled up Devotee of the Sands or Tokus or other cards, but it is running a ton of cards from the newest expansion. And now that I'm looking at it, these cards are from the latest two sets. The sole exceptions to that being Predator's Instinct, Seek Power, unless you're counting the Alt-Art Seek Power, Banners, Seats, A Disjunction, and Reunite. So this deck is mostly set 7 and set 8. So an additional note, if you started playing this game relatively a relatively short time ago and you only have cards from the newest two expansions, this is your best bet to have something rather good crafted. Okay, so what I wanted to do with this deck, with Praxis number 2, well, not that number 2, just number 2. And number 2 because there are two cards in the newest set that have a rather specific line of text that says, when you draw your second card in a turn. And this is Toda Pioneer and Tattooed Dragon. So these two cards have a beneficial effect for you if you're drawing your second card in a turn, whether it's your turn or the opponent's turn. I mean, it's easier to do it on your turn because you just need to draw an additional card, and this is where the advantage from those cards comes in. So Toda Pioneer, you might have seen him in other decks as well. This is a 2-cost nutter. Well, it looks like a huge stony nut. 2-cost, 1/2 fire Totemite Explorer that says when you draw your second card in a turn, you get +2 power this turn. And also, if you have a ton of power, you can pay 4 to give one of your other units +4 attack and overwhelm this turn. The second ability is not limited to once per turn, so if you have ramped up a ton, you can just give your units overwhelm and achieve victory more often than not. The other card being Tattooed Dragon, a 4-cost double fire 4/3 flyer with pledge. That's a dragon and a nightmare. That says when you draw your second card in a turn, play a 2/2 Oni Grunt. So it gives you 3 units, for example, to chump block or to gank block some other units that the opponent has, or just to flood your board. So this is a 1-card threat that multiplies. Also, the set line of 4-cost 4/3 flyer is a very good one. Okay, so how do we achieve the effect of drawing multiple cards per turn? To be honest, in Eternal Card Game, many effects, like literally a ton of effects, says that you have to draw a card. Even if you're getting something new, it usually says create and draw a card. For example, Covetous Stranger says when one or more strangers attack, their owner creates and draws a treasure trove. And this is a 2-cost, 2-on-fire stranger. And this, the other sub-theme of this deck, aside from ramping up and drawing at least 2 cards in a turn, is strangers. Well, mainly it's Grot of Stranger, but I'm going to get to that in a moment. So, Covetous Stranger. If you have a Toda Pioneer in play, and you're attacking with a stranger while Covetous Stranger is in play, whether on your side or the opponent's side, you get to create and draw a treasure trove, which means you're drawing your second card in a turn, which means you're proccing Toda Pioneer and or Tattooed Dragoon. Dragon. Sorry, not Dragoon. It's a dragon, not a dragoon. So yes, you have your Covetous Strangers to achieve that. You have your Cause and Dark card, and you should know Cause and Dark card. It is a 3-cost double fire 1/5 Oni Cultist that says when you play a dragon with a name you don't already have, create and draw a treasure trove, but also has Mastery 3. Play a 4/4 Cinder Dragon with flying. So if you play your Cause and Dark card on turn 3, it stays alive, and on turn 4, if you play Tattooed Dragon, you're playing the dragon is in play. When the dragon is in play, you're creating and drawing a treasure trove, which is your second card drawn in a turn, which means Tattoo Dragon plays a 2/2 Oni grunt for you. So yeah, that is already a huge advantage. Also, you have your Grotto Stranger. When it attacks, it draws you 2 cards. But there are several other cards. Well, Nahid's Distillation also draws you cards. So for example, if you have a Toad Pioneer in play, and on turn 4 you exhaust it to play Nahid's Distillation, you generate 2 power anyway, so you can play a Magnificent Stranger or maybe a Seer that you have drawn to further influence the board somehow. Another way of drawing cards is just with Seek Power. This is the easiest way, because you're drawing a sigil from your deck, and this deck is running 13 sigils because you have those 4 Seek Powers and 4 Grotto Strangers with a Stranger sub-theme. So you need to have a lot of them actually for those effects to be good. There is also Blazing Salvo, or honestly any other market-grabbing card, because all the new fast spells that grab you cards from your black market, like this Blazing Salvo, this is a 1-cost fire fast spell that deals 2 damage to a unit, which is great on its own, but you may also swap a card from your hand with a 2-cost card in your black market. Now this effect doesn't say draw a card from your black market, but getting a card from your market is always drawing it. So if you have a Toad Pioneer in play or a Tattoo Dragon in play, and you're playing a Blazing Salvo, and you're swapping a card for a card in your black market on your turn, that is drawing your second card in a turn from your market, and that is proccing those effects. Another one is Emblem of Grotto, and other emblems as well, but the Grotto is here, I'm going to explain in a moment. It is the time emblem that says Decimate. If you have at least 3 time influence, create and draw a 2/2 Earth Elemental with Exalted. Previously, this deck was also running 4 copies of Emblem of Shavka, but there were two negative interactions there. If you're running 8 emblems, you're dealing 2-3 points of damage throughout the game to yourself, which makes it easier for your opponent to win. And in this deck you have no life gain, so it might be difficult against some decks. And B, you have your 4 copies of Grotto Stranger and 4 copies of Seek Power, which draw sigils from your deck, so you would be running very low on sigils. And finally, for the last reason, you already have a ton of effects that draw you additional cards in a turn. So there is that as well. But once again, it is create and draw. Also, you don't want to be decimating a ton of power. You want to be getting up to 6 to 7 power. The ramp effect of Toad Pioneer is a very unique one. For example, if you've played, I don't know, Seed of Impulse into a Time Sigil into Toad Pioneer, and on turn 3, you're playing Emblem of Grotto, you are up to 3 max power and 3 current power, but then you're decimating this card, you're drawing the Earth Elemental, your max power goes down to 2, but your current power goes up to 5, which means you are able to cast a lot of things, a lot of cool things. But what Toad Pioneer does mainly is, for example, on turn 3, you could play Seek Power, get a power card, which is drawing another card. You're playing the power, and you're suddenly turn 3. You're at 4 power. You can play your Tattoo Dragon, or you can play Nahid's Distillation. And on the following turn, you can ramp up to Grotto Stranger even. So you can play Grotto Stranger as early as turn 4 with 1 Toad Pioneer in play. Or with Magnificent Stranger in play, because Magnificent Stranger is also here. This is one of the new cycle of strangers from Echoes of Eternity. It is a 2-costing time stranger with a very good 2/3 stat line that says when 1 or more strangers attack, reduce the cost of the top card of the owner's deck by 2. Now this effect is also a very interesting one, because you have to remember that the cost reduction clause skips all cards that cost 0. So it skips through all the power cards, and if you've already reduced the cost of some cards in your deck, for example, by attacking with strangers while Magnificent Stranger 1 or more are in play, so if you reduce the cost of some cards to 0, then this effect goes on future cards as well. So you can have a chain of 0 costing cards, which is very good with Nahid's Distillation, because you're just playing Distillation and playing all the cards. So yes, these cards are here, and it seems I have explained most of these already. Okay, so what do we have rounding out the deck? We have 4 copies of Ramba, Arena Showman. This is a 3-cost 4/4 giant with double Praxis influence requirement that says when this hits the enemy player, reduce the cost of each card in your hand by 1, which is kind of good if you have 6-costing Nahid's Distillations, Grot of Strangers, and a Shavka Stranger. But also, if you've already ramped up throughout the game, you can pay 7 to play the top card of your deck. And this is not a one-off. This does not exhaust Ramba, so we can use this effect multiple times to either, I don't know, play additional power cards in a turn, or maybe draw some more cards with Nahid's Distillation, or do other cool things. What else do we have? 4 copies of Grot of Stranger, even after the nerf. This is a 6-cost double time 6/6 Stranger, which is a huge presence on the board, and all its effects are very beneficial for you. When a player plays a Stranger, they play a random sigil from their deck, which means even if you just ramp up on turn 4 with Tota Pioneer and play Grot of Stranger, even if you decimate your power with Emblem of Grotov to achieve that effect, you are getting your sigil back. Yeah, this allows you to play some other cards and many cards on your future turns. Also, Grot of Stranger later when it attacks, it shuffles a Void of your choice into its owner's deck, then you get to draw 2 cards. So if you have a ton of power in play already, that allows you to play those cards much easier. Alright, there is also 1 copy of Strange Gladiator and 1 copy of Shavka Stranger in this deck, because in your black market you have a copy of Reunite that allows you to draw a Stranger of your choice from your deck, so you have sort of kind of access to 2 toolbox Strangers, I would call them, with Strange Gladiator being a 3-cost 3/3 that says when a player plays a Stranger, all their weapons and units in hand get permanently +1/+1, but you can also pay 4 and exhaust this to kill an enemy relic. So you have a way and means of destroying enemy relics here, main deck, and that is very good. And there's also 1 copy of the overcosted Shavka Stranger here. That is a 7-cost double fire influence, 9/6 Stranger. That is a very strange stat line, but one that says when a player plays a Stranger, it deals 3 damage to a non-stranger enemy. Could even be the opponent's face, but also when Shavka Stranger attacks, you get +1 power this turn for each of your units. So if you're overflowing the board, if you've created a ton of Oni Grunts with your Tattoo Dragon, well then you have a ton of power in play already, which allows you to play other cards, and you're usually drawing more cards because you have your treasure troves, or you can just activate Ramba multiple times, or you can play your Nahid's Distillation, etc, etc. Yes, what else do we have here? We have 4 copies of Predator's Instinct, a 1-cost slow spell that gives a unit killer. Now, this Predator's Instinct is the best follow-up to Grot of Stranger, and I believe I've already talked about it in a video or another, because if you're paying 6 for a 6/6 Stranger, you're putting into play, then the first effect is triggered because you're getting a random sigil from your deck, and it is ready, which means you have one spare power. And you can use that spare power to play Predator's Instinct on Grot of Stranger, and then you can use it to shuffle a Void of your choice from your deck. Then you're drawing 2 cards, then you're destroying an opponent's unit. Well, obviously the opponent has to have a unit you can kill her. But this makes Grot of Stranger much deadlier, this specific combination of Grot of Stranger into Predator's Instinct. We also have 4 copies of Seer, and Seer, Blazing Salvo, and Predator's Instinct are your only removal spells of choice in your main deck. And if you look at it, Blazing Salvo deals 2 damage, Seer deals 3 damage, so you can only deal with small units. How do you deal with big units then? Well, you have big units of your own, or you have Predator's Instinct. And, well, This is the biggest downside of the deck. You don't have any kill any unit effects, you don't have kill all unit effects, you don't have your last light's judgment formatting your hard drive, etc. You're just using salvos and sears to get rid of cheap opposing units, and then you're using your huge Crowd of Strangers or your Oni Grunt army led by Tattoo Dragons or your Shavka Stranger singing Shavka's songs of glory and just going in. Also remember, if you have a ton of power with your, thanks to your Strangers, your Totem Pioneers give your units overwhelmed, so you can attack the opponent to 0 health that much more easy. Alright, the only thing left aside from the power base is the market. The power base is quite easy. We have 8 dual powers, the only 8 that are available for us. 4 copies of Emblem of Grotov. I've already said that we need a lot of sigils for this deck to be using Seek Powers and Grotov Stranger to their fullest effects. And just 4 emblems, I've already said that, well, you don't want to decimate that often anyway, because you have 6 and 7 cost cards in your deck. Now, as far as your black market goes, I wanted to have some fast interactions in the black market. That is, for example, why I'm running Kairos' Choice instead of Purify in the market, so that I have fast, so that if I am using Blazing Salvo on the opponent's turn to deal 2 damage to an enemy unit, then I can grab Kairos' Choice and I can use Kairos' Choice to kill yet another unit. And that's it. That's the upside of having Kairos' Choice in the black market with all those fast spells. The other fast spell being Disjunction. You get to draw an attachment from your Void, but as you can see, you don't have any attachments in this deck. But you also get to just kill an enemy attachment. And given that I'm not running any attachments here, I just realized that Disjunction does not make any sense. And you should just put Unmake here. My mistake. That was an honest mistake. So yes, no Disjunction, just Unmake here. Alright. Also, we have Edict of Shavka for removal, or for example, well, it's not if the opponent is running Daring Griffins, because if the opponent is running Daring Griffins, your Blazing Salvo gets negated. But anyway, you can deal 5 damage to an enemy that is Justice or Primal, which kills some of the sites. Not that there is a ton of sites in the Expedition format, or you can just get through Aegis on some Unseen and kill them this way. You also have access to 1 copy of Reunite that allows you to draw a Stranger of your choice from your deck. That's usually going to be Grotov Stranger, or if you already tutored for Unmake, you can grab your Strange Gladiator and kill enemy relics that way. And last but not least, this is a flag slot. I wanted to have a straight out unit here in the market, and I've chosen Kato Arena Herald because later in the game, probably if you want to get a finisher, you should have 10 units in your Void by then. So you're playing a 2-1 that gives you an 8/8 giant. And when it dies and you have a Kato Shade, then you're creating another 8/8 giant. You could also just swap Kato for another 2-drop, but I believe you should have at least 1 unit in your market here. Okay, this deck for sure is much easier to explain and much easier to play than the previous one, than Format C. So I believe no other introductions or no other explanations are necessary. Let's just get to the games and I'll show you how this deck works. Not in theory, but in practice. In Praxis. And in practice. Okay, let's get to the games. Alright, this is a hand that you could keep because you can go for your 3rd power for Ramba or for Kozin. You don't even need to pledge Tattoo Dragon. Now, the thing is, you can either play Praxis Banner turn 1 or Fire Sigil into Seek Power because the first card you're playing is going to be on turn 3. So I opted to go for Banner first, but then it turns out the opponent is running a Sabotage main deck, and they took my Seek Power, and I'm already down my 3rd power, and already this hand is useless. So this is a warning for everyone. If you have such a hand, such an opening hand, and you don't know what your opponent is playing, just start with Seek Power. I did not want to start with Seek Power because these decks are usually power heavy, and I wanted to have a higher probability of drawing a 4th power later on, so it is just a small percentage point or two working in my favor, but being results oriented and the opponent just sabotaging my Seek power, which by the way was the only spell in my hand, well, that made just everything much worse now, didn't it? Okay, finally, I can cast Ramba or Cousin, and I opted to start with Ramba. The opponent is playing Edict of Makar main deck, but still, given that I am very short on power, I want Ramba's effect to come into play, and I want to decrease the cost of the cards in my hand by 1, so as to be able to play them. Hopefully sooner than later. Opponent is playing Blazing Salvo on my unit, which doesn't do anything. Unless they have a fast spell that deals more damage here, like Seer, but they don't. So I'm doing this. And at this point, I've made another mistake that you're gonna see in a moment. I opted not to go for Tattoo Dragon, but Cousin into Tattoo Dragon, Magnificent Stranger. But then I thought to myself, okay, I won't be using Ramba anymore right now, so I gave it Killer to kill the dragon. But obviously I've forgotten that I've already attacked with Ramba, so this is a game of not only small mistakes, but I would say slightly bigger mistakes. Can I get back from it? Hopefully. Well, the opponent's also playing some Flame Fang, so I have to go on the defensive rather soon. So yes, if I play Tattoo Dragon, I'm getting a ground unit, and I have the Flying Dragon. Sorry, not Dragon, it's a dragon. Oh my goodness, I have problems with pronouncing the name of that card today, don't I? Anyway, the thing is, Ramba should kill the Flying Dragon. I should also play Tattoo Dragon and have a chump blocker. And my 1/5 should be chump blocking their Flame Fang for sure. We also get the Treasure Trove, which is good. I don't think we need to use Killer this turn. I believe I'm gonna just leave it for Grot of Stranger. Barbarian Camp, that's a strange inclusion here. Okay, I thought for a moment, and in the end I opted to... I could either block here and double block or chump block the 6/5. I could have triple blocked the 6/5 with Cousin with my Magnificent Stranger and the Oni Grunt, but I opted to go for just chump blocking and going for the lowest health loss, because remember, I don't have any life gain in this deck. I attacked with the Stranger first so as to have a cost reduction on the card I am drawing with my Treasure Trove. And that was very fortunate because that allowed me to play the Ramba that I just drew. Also, we got the Oni Grunt here for our troubles. Dread Hellkite, meaning one of my units cannot block, and it is the 2/2, but I can double block their 6/5 with my Ramba and Cousin. And that is not a bad play. Excuse me, not at all. Because at least one of my units survives. Now, I can attack with at least Ramba and some other units as well, probably. I can use Blazing Salvo and get a Kairos' Choice. So yeah, I have a total hand advantage, board advantage, etc., and the opponent saw it and just conceded. Okay, so despite those two mistakes, one being really, I mean, I was not expecting anyone to just turn one Shadow Sigil sabotage me, but at least public service announcement. Now you know that's possible in Expedition. Okay, let's get on to game number 2 now. Okay, this is a very interesting hand that I'm gonna keep. The biggest interesting factor is that I don't want to be playing my Seek power on turn 1, because that is an effect of drawing an additional card that I can use while having Total Pioneer in play on turn 3. And I could start with Covetous Stranger, then next turn attack with the Stranger and after playing Toad the Pioneer. But I believe that is just hoping the opponent does not have any blockers here, nor that they have removal for my Covetous Stranger. And they have Nahid's Choice, and they are playing 2 1/1 cultists. But yeah, I want to go for it anyway. And I thought to myself, okay, so I can trade my 2/1 for one of their cultists, which is fine. Then I'm getting +2 power this turn, so I can play the Toad the Pioneer and end turn. And on the following turn, I can seek power, have 6 power, and play Grotto's Stranger. That's a rather good thing. But the opponent is destroying one of my Totemites, which means I cannot really do that right now. Okay, let's get a Time Sigil, so that I can go for Emblem of Grotto on the following turn. And we can also play Cousin, or we can play Distillation, but I opted to go for Cousin and just attack here for 1. Because we can, because it's still damage, and we do have a blocker for their Xenon Cultist. Stonescar Banner. Shrine to Carve It. Sure. Okay, so Emblem of Grotto, Decimating, which means I'm going 1 lower on max power but 2 higher on power this turn, which means I can power out Grotto's Stranger and regain the power I lost to the Decimate effect. I also opted to attack with both units, which is going to be my downfall, because the opponent is playing Crack the Earth and is going to double block my Toad the Pioneer, so I'm losing my Pioneer just because. And this is another piece of PSA: don't attack with your 1/2. It is very crucial to the success of your deck. Seriously. So the play here was just attacking with your 1/5 Cousin Darkheart. Kindling Carver. Yes, it is that deck. It is Destruction Carver Shrine Madness. Well, hopefully my units are going to be much bigger than the opponent's units. Now we also have to take a look through both voids, and given the opponent has a couple of just 1/1 cultists, I opted to say, hey, why don't we get rid of them? Next up, seek power, grab, doesn't matter which sigil, and play my Cousin Darkheart. Or was it Blazing Salvo? No, it is Blazing Salvo first. We can get rid of this Earth Elemental. Also, get a Disjunction for their Shrine of Carvet, but I think I want to go for Cousin first. Nope, just Shrine. Just get rid of the Shrine now. Also remember that Disjunction right now should be an unmake, because you don't have any attachments that you can get back from your void. Don't hit me. The opponent has Carver number 2, drawing a card off of Dark Wisp, drawing a card off of Carver, playing some more Cultist, aka Fodder, playing a Devour, yum yum yum. Alright. Now the thing is, who has... do I have good cards in my void, or does the opponent have bad cards in their void? And I opted to redo mine, because I already had some good cards there. Well, even if it's just a treasure trove, it's still a good card. Playing Covetous Stranger to get a power. I did not play Covetous Stranger before the attack. I did not draw a treasure trove, but I wanted to draw an undepleted power source with my Grotto's Stranger, because then I would just play the second Grotto's Stranger, got 2 sigils, and then play Covetous Stranger, and then gained 2 more sigils. But for right now, I thought to myself of going for either Edict of Shavka or Kairos' Choice. I could also go for Reunite and grab one of my big strangers. Reunite also allows me to go for Strange Gladiator and kill some more relics that they could be playing, like this Induced Madness. Fortunately, I have some small units I can get rid of rather easily. And this is going to be Grotov Stranger, getting 2 sigils, attacking with some units. Well, getting rid of a blocker for sure. Attacking with some units, reshuffling their void because they have some more Xenon cultists in there, which are really dead draws. Getting Predator's Instinct if we need to use it on Grotov Stranger. And yeah, this should be it for the game. Just let the opponent draw a card and concede. And there you go. That's game number 2. Now let's head on over to game number 3. Now this is a very good hand, but it is also another hand in which I think I should be keeping Seek Power and not pledging Tattoo Dragon. Especially given that I draw Seed of Impulse. Talier's favored, sure, the opponent is playing Destruction Colors yet again. Oh great, Cousin Darkheart is a perfect draw here, because we can go turn 3 Cousin Darkheart into turn 4 Tattoo Dragon, and already play our 2/2 Oni Grunt. Yeah, that Combust is not a huge deal breaker here. So playing that Cousin Darkheart, hopefully into Tattoo Dragon. Strange Burglar. Okay. We have some strangers here as well. This is high time to play Praxis Banner into Tattoo Dragon. So getting that Treasure Trove. Next turn we can play that Treasure Trove to draw our second card in a turn to proc the 4/3 Tattoo Dragon once again. And the opponent is playing Scrap Tank. That's scrapalicious. We need to get rid of it rather soon. Or we can just keep chump blocking it. Yeah, get another Oni Grunt here, Grotov Stranger, that's perfect. I've also forgotten that I can play one of my strangers before the attack to attack with the dragon for 5 because of their Strange Burglar. And I opted to go for the Magnificent one instead of the Covetous one. Next turn it's going to be Grotov Stranger into Seek Power probably. Sure, Talier's favored. Does not matter now. We just need to get rid of the Scrap Tank. Opponent, would you like to sacrifice a Granadin with your Strange Burglar? By any chance? No, just Devour. Why use a card from your hand when you can use an effect of one of your units? I have no idea. Also, that is a 7/7, the opponent is out of power and we have exactly 7 that we can use here. We can kill that. The opponent is making a small or rather a large mistake now because they cannot kill the 2/3 and Cousin. They could have killed either Cousin and one of the grunts or the 2/3 and 2 grunts. But it turns out they didn't. Also, drawing a Tota Pioneer is free to power, so it repays for itself. And this is a huge turn of drawing a ton of cards, getting up on power, and, well, I could just A-space, but I opted to attack just in the air, and keep Seek Power for the next turn. If they get rid of my Grotov Stranger, for example. I'm taking a look at which void to reshuffle into the owner's deck, and it's probably going to be the opponent's. I mean, they do have a 7/7 Scrap Tank there, but also a Grenadin or another. And some Talier's favorites that are not doing them many favors. 2/2 Deadly. Okay. And a Display of Destruction to get more power. But what are they going to use it for? Profane Nexus, sure. And, well, it seems the opponent is just either thinking a lot or giving up on the game. Don't know which. But their time is running out. Soul's Fury the Dragon, sure. We have a ton of other units here. So, yeah, I could do one of several things, but yeah, it was the opponent just giving up right there, right then. Okay, those were 3 games with Praxis number 2. Now let's head on over back to the studio and talk some more about this deck. Alright, these were rather short games, so you can see that the tempo this deck generates can be really fast. I also forgot to include one comment on one interaction within this deck, and that is also a reason why I'm running Emblems of Grotov over Emblems of Shavka. You are getting an Exalted Elemental, and you are already running Predator's Instincts in here. So, Predator's Instincts, not only do they just go wild on Rambas or on Grotov Strangers especially, but you can also play them on your Earth Elemental, Killer Something, that is a 2 or 1 health unit. And then you can get a 2/2 Killer Exalted Weapon on one of your other units, and, well, yeah, the small iteration of a Killer Chain, but a couple of killer effects nonetheless. Anyway, this is going to be it for this rather shorter video deck explanation, because honestly, it's a rather straightforward deck. It is kind of expensive, especially with those 4 Grotov Strangers and that Shavka Stranger. I mean, if you don't have Shavka Stranger, you can always just play Kairos here, main deck. I was also thinking about that. And you don't need your Kato in the market. I believe you can just get away with playing any other card there. The biggest downside of this deck, in my opinion, is the lack of interaction with larger units. I mean, in the end, if you think that some of these cards are not necessary here, for example, like, I don't know, 2 Seek Powers, maybe Shavka Stranger, etc., and big Primal and Shadow cards are running rampant, you can still go, for example, for Edict of Grotov's main deck, but these cost 4 now, so you cannot have them in the 2-cost market. But yeah, I think that's about it, and I don't know if there is a ton of blue or purple units you want to get rid of with those edicts. I mean, the Shadow Soup days are over. Thankfully? Question mark? Do you think it's good that Shadow Soup is no longer out there? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, if you're enjoying this deck and the deck check series or not. This has been Calebovitsch. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time in about a week. Bye-bye.